So Ruben Amorim's first game in charge of Manchester United didn't exactly go as planned. It was certainly far from perfect. However, I do believe that Amorim will have taken a lot from the game, and he would have learned a lot about his side and the way that he needs to profile his team moving forward. So what were those lessons that he learned? Well, I'll tell you what, if you subscribe to the channel real quick, please, then we'll get into the video. So for me, I feel that one of the big lessons that Amorim would have learned is the profiling of his deep defensive core. So we are of course talking about the back three, the three centre-backs, and of course the two central midfielders or the double pivot in front of them. Now we do have to remember that Amorim was very much forced into this lineup for this game. There were a lot of players returning late or just returning from injury. He didn't have too much freedom with this 11. However, I would be very, very surprised if we ever see this 11 again, particularly because of some of the defensive issues that Manchester United faced in this game. So what were those defensive issues? One of them, unfortunately, was Jonny Evans. I did predict that he would play as a wide centre-back in this game. We got that call right. However, it unfortunately didn't work, and I don't think Ruben Amorim will do it again. And the reason it really didn't work was because Jonny Evans was required to back up the press and follow Omari Hutchinson into deeper areas over here. The problem was for Jonny Evans, he didn't really want to go and do that. He was really hesitant. He didn't trust himself to do that. And when he did do it, he actually just wasn't good enough. In terms of his mobility, he was beaten too easily. We can see it here. Manchester United are trying to be aggressive in the press. This isn't a bad pressing structure at all. The problem is Casemiro's a little bit stuck between two players. And the reason that Casemiro is stuck is because Jonny Evans is too passive, too deep at this moment in time. Now eventually, Jonny Evans does choose to be aggressive. You can see Hutchinson in space. Jonny Evans recognises this and chooses to eventually be aggressive. The problem there is the use of the word eventually. He's too late. And when you get to a player late in a pressing situation, you really have to come charging in. This is Jonny Evans at full speed. The problem when you run at someone at full speed is that you are so off balance the second they change direction. You can see here Hutchinson is going to change direction. Look how flat-footed Jonny Evans is. He physically cannot turn quick enough, and ultimately he gets absolutely done. Hutchinson moves the ball forward. There were situations where Jonny Evans though was a bit tighter to his man. The problem here was that he just couldn't deal with the mobility of Hutchinson. Hutchinson played an unbelievable game. His low centre of gravity was fantastic. In situations like this, the way that he would keep his balance, keep the ball and just spin away from two players at once was absolutely phenomenal moving into these positions. This is one of the key lessons that Amorim will have learned. The wide centre-back profiling is going to have to be spot on. Now in the short term, we perhaps don't have a ton of solutions to this problem, although perhaps one could be Luke Shaw. Now the reason why I say Luke Shaw could potentially be the solution to this problem is because he was exactly that in the second half of this match. Luke Shaw approached these situations in a very different way. The first thing that he done was he managed the distance between himself and Hutchinson. He wasn't too far away, but he also wasn't touch tight, too close. He gave himself a really nice distance. Now what that meant was that when Hutchinson got the ball and looked to play on the turn, Shaw was already in a really good position. And we can see that here. As Hutchinson turns on the ball, Luke Shaw has got himself set so nicely. He's got a balance here where he can be aggressive and go forward onto his right foot, or he can shift his balance towards his left foot and track back and move backwards. He's got himself into a really nice position simply because he reads the whole play better, he's a more mobile player, and he deals with the situation really well. And what we saw in the second half of this game was Hutchinson becoming much more quiet on the ball because Shaw locked him down. So this is something that Amorim has to consider moving forward. Something else that Amorim will have to consider is his pairings in midfield, the way that he pairs the profiles. Now again, of course, he gets the benefit of the doubt for this game. He was forced into a lot of these decisions. But long term moving forward, Casemiro and Eriksen should not play together in midfield. Why is that? Well, the pair of them are not really players that want to be super aggressive on the press, engaging really high. You would perhaps argue that Casemiro is that type of player, but unfortunately he doesn't have the physicality or the mobility really to do that anymore in his career. So Manchester United had themselves in a situation where we would press high on one side of the pitch like this. We've done a really good job, and we're going to force the pass from Ipswich into midfield. This is the cue for Casemiro to be aggressive, for Eriksen to be aggressive, and to try and turn the ball over. But Manchester United missed a cue so often. So often the United midfielders didn't read these situations. They weren't aggressive quick enough. Now, one of the reasons for that was because the centre-backs behind them were struggling with Hutchinson, like we've discussed already, which made our midfielders hesitant. But even when they were there, we know that these two are not suited to the duel. So Amorim will know that he needs someone who can deal with these situations much better, who is more willing to be aggressive and on the front foot, and just generally speaking, is a bit more mobile and can cover more ground. You can see the problem here. Casemiro is looking at the player behind him because the centre-back hasn't been aggressive to come after him. So Casemiro, again, ultimately has two players, like what he did earlier. So it's not ideal for Casemiro. He needs help from his centre-backs. But also himself, he needs to do a better job of reading when to squeeze high. Here he tries to squeeze high on the press. He probably should be doing this, but he's too late. And we saw it with Johnny Evans. When you're too late, you have to run quick. You have to run quick into these situations. And when you run quickly towards these sort of duels, you're just off balance. Look at Casemiro here. This is not the optimal balance to be turning direction. He looks like he's going to fall over any second. He's going to go into a slide tackle, something like that. He is just not in the ideal position. And as a result, he gets turned unbelievably easy and the opposition can move the ball away. So in terms of what Amorim needs to do, first of all, he needs to get players back fit and available. And then he needs to make better decisions with this base 5 players, particularly off the ball. As well as the out of possession stuff, Amorim also would have learned a lot about his squad in terms of what they do on the ball. And again, there is going to be a focus on this deep 5, but we will also branch into the front line as well, because there were problems, to be honest, all over the pitch, which you expect in a manager's first game. Let's start off with the deep 3, the 3 centre-backs. We've spoken a lot over the past 4 weeks or so about how these players need to be progressive with the ball. They need to be able to carry the ball forward, they need to be confident in passing the ball forward, particularly the 2 wider centre-backs. And then that middle centre-back is someone who's going to tick it over a bit more. A lot of simple sideways passing, but also some adventurous long passing out to the wing-backs. You need that. If we actually look at these 3 from this game, starting off with Mazraoui, he done a really good job. He passed the ball forward well. He was progressive for United. Compare that to Johnny Evans on the left-hand side, there are a lot of backwards passes in this game. He never really progressed the ball forward for his team. And then De Ligt, he done one role well. He kept it moving side to side. But he wasn't adventurous enough. He had to utilise the switch on a more regular basis, and he didn't really feel comfortable doing that in this game, which again is something that Amorim is going to have to look at moving forward, the centre-backs that he picks. Again, someone like Luke Shaw will solve a lot of problems here. Lissandro Martinez on the ball would solve a lot of problems. Even Lenny Yoro playing central centre-back would solve some of these issues. The other issue though is that perhaps at times they don't trust the 2 midfielders in front of them. You see, when you play in this system, there are times when you are genuinely surrounded in midfield, but you have to trust that you can receive the ball, even if you're just going to pop it off backwards. Sometimes you need that. You can see it in a situation like this. Manchester United are in a 3-2 shape, a shape which we know we will see more of under Amorim. But as Christian Eriksen picks the ball up, you can see Casemiro is surrounded. What you have to do more in these situations is trust that you can go into that player and that he can take a touch before moving it on to someone else. Because what you can do sometimes, if you do this sort of in and then out movement, you can drag the Ipswich players out of position. And let's say these Ipswich players get drawn out a little bit. Suddenly Mazraoui might then be able to find a pass back inside and we can find a bit more room on the ball. Now actually on this occasion, Manchester United do this. We do go in and then out again. But again, I think it's something that we have to do on a more regular basis. And I think you have to look at the profile of the 2 midfielders. Do Christian Eriksen and Casemiro want to play in this way? Probably not. Eriksen can do it in moments and he can certainly pass into the block. But I don't know if you want him being the one responsible for passing out of the block. So again, this is something that Ruben Amorim will need to look at over the next few months, really. He will have to address this situation. And then just the other thing that I want to touch on was the inside forwards. Because I think we were all a little bit surprised with the team selection in this area. The fact that it was Garnacho and Bruno Fernandes behind Marcus Rashford. Now, if it had been just Garnacho or just Bruno, I think it would have made a lot of sense. A direct player, a goal threat in the final third, willing runners. Makes a lot of sense. The problem when you put them together is neither of them are linking or connecting players. And again, for the past month, all we've been talking about is trying to get one linking player into this position. Manchester United completely lacked that. This was 2 very direct players at times. No one that wanted to connect midfield to attack in a proper manner. Take the ball in tight spaces. We saw earlier just how tight it was for Casemiro. At times it was the same for these higher players as well. You are going to receive the ball under pressure. You need to be able to take a good first touch, move away from your opponent, and then find a pass. That is something that United didn't do anywhere near enough. Now again, the good thing for Amorim is there are some solutions within the squad. Moving Ahmad into an inside forward position like this would really bring something to this Manchester United team. An ability to glide past players, but also to keep the ball and be a retention player. He could be really good for that linking role. Another option, if I can find him, would also be Mason Mount. Mason Mount is a brilliant connecting player. He's got a really good first touch, good energy, but he keeps the ball well. He's got that real nice blend of ball retention, but also ball progression, which is ultimately what you need for this role. So once again, Amorim does have some solutions within his squad. I think some of these problems can be addressed fairly quickly with simple personnel changes, you know, bringing, let's say, Luke Shaw into defence or Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo into midfield. I think we address some of the problems in the short term, but of course other ones are going to take much longer than that. This is something that will take 6 months for some of these issues, or even 18 months, or new signings in the summer. But in the short term, I think Amorim will have learned a lot, and providing he has more players to choose from, I would be very surprised if we see that 11 again. I think he would have learned a lot about the Premier League, which is a good thing. So we may not have won, but we really did get a lot from this game, and Amorim will use that. It's an amazing tool for him now to help Manchester United move forward. But those are just my thoughts on the game and some of the lessons that we, and hopefully Amorim and his team, learned. What do you think though? What did you learn in this game? What do Manchester United need to change? Is it a different type of profile at wing back or at centre back or up front? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.